Hello and welcome back to the Fantasy Injury Team podcast, brought to you by Guys Trip. Are you planning a golf trip, bachelor party, sporting event trip, or just need a weekend getaway with the guys? Guys Trip plans your entire trip, and they'll save you up to 30% off retail pricing for rental homes, transportation, golf, nightlife, and so much more. Visit guystriplive.com and use the code FIT for an additional 10% off your fee today. Guys Trip. Just show up. Another week down, ladies and gentlemen, and another week, unfortunately, of some awful NFL injuries to dissect and discuss today. Tom Christ, the doctor of physical therapy, we got to have this conversation, man. I've been thinking about it, and this running back position in football and in fantasy football, I'm starting to wonder if it's even sustainable anymore at this point. I mean, we look at the list, man. It's sad. It stinks. It's hard for everybody. J.K. Dobbins, Jonathan Taylor, Saquon Barkley, Montgomery, Jamaal Williams, Kenneth Gainwell, of course, Chubb, Ekeler, Aaron Jones. What's your take on all this, Tom? Hello, and what's your take on all this stuff, man?
Hey, how you doing? My take is that this is a violent game that we love, a very, very violent game, and the running backs are the ones that take on a major brunt of the force because they're the ones with the ball the most that the defenders are trying to kill. It's really the whole zero RB strategy. I've never liked it until recently. I think there's a lot of support behind that now with just really since that we've started diving into these injuries last season. It's like, holy moly, these running backs just can't stay on the freaking field. So I just think we're going to continue to see the receiver position become more and more valuable, and a big reason of that is because of injuries.
I'm with that. And I think that goes not only for fantasy football, but for the NFL too. It's become more of a pass-happy league. I mean, it's unfortunate, really unfortunate, but it's starting to make sense to me why these teams don't want to pay the running backs the big bucks anymore. Like, of course, a great running back is dynamic and could change the entire game. And for everybody else out there, you got to be grateful for all those healthy running backs you have if you do have any left. But it makes me think about that zero RB strategy, Tom, and maybe it's going to be even more robust next season. We'll see. But lucky, good news for us is we do have Tom with us, and he's going to be able to talk us through the injury implications and the impacts and how they're going to affect your fantasy football team. So today's show, Tom, we got another good one. Injury updates. We got a special guest, Joe Dellera, on today to pop on for some sleeper picks, and I'll try to stay toasty, Tom. I'm 2-0. Going to go for 3-0 this week, and we got our Vampire Diaries, so a good show. So let's hit it, baby. It's our main segment here. So again, guys, this is data-driven information. As always, check out our site. Go to fantasyinjuryteam.com. Check out that injury list, explore the data. And Tom, I've seen it. I've seen a lot of even experts and people that we've talked to across the industry using our data. And that's factual. Use it yourselves, guys. Go check it out. See the data on fantasyinjuryteam.com. And Tom published a great article as well with all these players. But let's chat about them. Starting with my boy, the New York Giants running back, Saquon Barkley, already ruled out. Today is Wednesday. You'll probably be hearing this on Thursday. So ruled out of today's game, right ankle sprain. What's going on with him, man?
It's interesting because if you look at the video, it looked like a classic high ankle sprain. And that's what we all thought. And then we get these reports. I think the wording was it's an ordinary ankle sprain or something absolutely not medical terminology. That was pretty funny, actually.
The doctor said he's hurt, Tom. That's all he said.
Yeah.
You got a boo-boo.
You got a boo-boo, yeah. So the wording is telling us that it's a traditional lateral ankle sprain, which is kind of crazy because it didn't look like that at all. But sometimes you just don't know. He's not playing this week, so we'll have this conversation about him again next week. But originally they were saying like a 2 to 3 week type injury, so it'll be interesting to see if he's ready to go next week. I'm sure we'll start getting the reports. Oh, he's feeling a whole lot better, but who knows if that's actually true or if that's just coach speak to force their week 4 opponent to prepare for him. If he does play next week, we see about an 11% decline in fantasy production in running backs after this injury. Not enough to scare you off from starting Saquon Barkley, but the potential issue is that in the medical literature, we know that when an athlete's had an ankle sprain, they're at a 26% increase, or they have a 26% chance of spraining it again. So Definitely something that could linger season long, but hopefully they'll let him rehab properly, and then when he comes back, I'm sure that sucker is going to be taped and braced really good. So not so much of a hindrance on his production when he plays, but possibly could lead to some more injuries down the road.
All right. Well said, Tom, as always. We hope not to see that. And maybe, I mean, of course, the Giants coaching staff, with game planning in mind for their opposition, saying he had a chance to play this week. There was no way he was playing this week, but maybe a little bit of extra rest for next week. We'll see. But he's the heart and soul, man. The heart and soul of the New York Giants. Productive last week, man. 96 yards, 2 scores. The Giants had it. Some of the boys were there, man. I wasn't there. I wish I was. Nice comeback last week for the Giants in the desert. Now this week, guys, you got to take a look because I think there's people trying to get cute out there and play some of these Giants guys. Giants play the Niners, a great defense, a very strong team, especially against the run. They just held Najee Harris to 31 yards and Kyron Williams to 52 yards. So I don't even consider it, Tom. I know you're not considering it, but don't do it. Don't play. I think we're going to see a healthy mix this week of probably Breida, maybe even some Gary Brightwell. You're going to have Danny Dimes stealing some goal line work. I mean, don't. Tom, you're smiling. Please don't tell me.
I'm not interested in either of those running backs at all.
But just don't do it to yourselves. Like
I won't. You don't have to tell me. I'm not doing that.
Well, I got to tell the people out there that want to just throw one of these guys in there. Don't do it. And I honestly think the only person you could play on the Giants is probably Darren Waller at this point, and it's unfortunate. Maybe you get away with Danny Dimes, but don't lose your matchup on Thursday, guys. Wait for the better options over the weekend. Wait for Sunday's games, Monday's games. Wouldn't play any of these guys. Okay. Next guy, this is just crushing news for the fantasy community, for everybody really, and it's the Nick Chubb injury. It looked terrible. I mean, the Steelers fans, I give them a lot of credit for the grace and the way that they handled it, giving him a standing ovation, all that stuff. But it's a major knee injury. Definitely going to miss the rest of the season, Tom. Why don't you tell us a little more about Nick Chubb?
We are still awaiting wording on what all was injured, but it looked really, really bad. Like, we know there's a lot of structures in there that are injured. Reports today saying that he's probably going to need 2 separate surgeries with a time gap between each of them. This is not good at all. And again, we don't know exactly what's injured, but it sounds like this is probably worse or equal to or worse than what Javante's was last season, J.K. Dobbins a few years ago. And it sounds almost like it's on par with Chubb's injury from college, which was really, really bad. But again, we don't have the specifics yet. But what we need to consider is, so with the injury, it's almost a guarantee the ACL is part of it. So if we follow our typical, what predicts if a player can return from an ACL, it's 1, age, not in his favor anymore. He's 27, will be 28 next season. 2, number of structures involved. There's definitely a ton. So his rehab process is going to be very, very slow at first, especially if he needs 2 surgeries, because then you start the rehab after the first one, and I don't know what the breakdown of the surgeries would be. I'm sure we'll find out soon, but he'll do some period of rehab after the first one, and then he'll have more stuff repaired, so then the rehab kind of starts over at that point. So that's not in his favor at all, and that's also going to delay the timing of when the surgery occurred, because that's when rehab really starts. That's when that timeline of, I had surgery this day, and there's X amount of weeks until week 1. So those 3 are really all not in his favor, and those are really, really big factors with being able to return from a significant knee injury. He'll be 28 next year, and we know that the data after these major knee injuries, not good for running backs. For ACL specifically, we see a 35% decline in their fantasy production in the first season back. And then, so pretty confidently say next year is not going to be great for him. Going into year 2 after this injury, he's 29 at that point. Running backs start to decline. Now, Nick Chubb, he's got some things going in his favor. One, we see how much he's squatted. Like, those legs are about as strong as they can get pre-injury and pre-surgery. So that will help to some degree. And by all reports, he's an incredibly hard worker, dedicated person. So he's got that going for him as well, but definitely huge uphill battle for him to play at a high level again. I'm not going to entirely count him out from coming back to play in the NFL, but I just it's going to be very, very hard. If I had him in any dynasty leagues, I would take whatever I can get for him at this point.
It's heartbreaking, 100%. I mean, he was also this year's favorite to win the rushing title. I mean, he's a fan favorite. He's a good guy. People love him, but I'm worried just because of his age. Like I would say if there was no injury here, Tom, he's got 2-3 solid years left, right? But this is going to put him, way back, a bunch of steps back here. And like you said, man, he's going to be 29 before he's fully recovered again and remains to be seen. But if a guy could do it, man, he's done it before, right? What did he in 2015, right? He had this major, some major procedures done there, right?
Yeah, but keep in mind, he was like 19, 20 years old back then,
Right.
which is a huge advantage over being 27, 28.
For sure. Now, fantasy implication-wise, I mean, this backfield becomes interesting, I think. I mean, we got news today. I was sitting in class, got the news about Kareem Hunt signing there. For me, I mean, this is an early take. We have to see. I think the guy I want, though, is Jerome Ford. I mean, there were dudes spending $150 of their $200, people spending all out. I don't think he's a league winner, Jerome Ford. He's the guy that I'm excited most about in this backfield, though. He was great, man. 106 yards, 16 carries, added 3 catches, 25 for a touchdown, only 24 years old. He's a 4.46 40 guy. He showed a little bit of burst last week. Showed really good. I don't know if you saw the game at all. He ran right, and there was some traffic there, cuts back around, 69-yard run, really showed some good vision there. Don't get it twisted. He's not Nick Chubb, of course, but I think he's the guy to own there. I mean, we might see a little bit of Pierre Strong on the goal line. Maybe I don't even think he's worthy of a bench stash, but definitely go check out, of course, Kareem Hunt and Jerome Ford. But Kareem Hunt, I mean, he knows the system well. Real quick, Tom, what do you think about him? I think that he's washed just by looking at some of his statistics and how he did last year. But, I mean, he definitely shouldn't be on your waivers, guys.
Yeah, no, I mean, he should be picked up for sure. I agree that Ford is going to be the guy. I have Nick Chubb in my main league, and I don't know why, but a few years ago, somebody in the league complained that he was like too busy on Tuesdays to look at waivers. So we pushed our waiver day back to Thursday, and I'm set to spend like 70% of my fab on Jerome Ford. And by the time my league mates hear this, it'll have already gone. So I don't mind disclosing that. But I have it set to spend 70% of my fab on Ford because I'm screwed. Like Chubb was my guy, and he's gone. So I need a replacement. And I think based off what we've seen from Ford, at least the other day, he can fill that role well enough that I think he's worth that 70% fab. If you're in a situation like me where you lost Chubb, if you didn't lose Chubb and you have 2-3 viable running backs, I wouldn't spend that much. But yeah, I mean, Hunt's worth adding too. I wouldn't spend more than maybe 15-20% on him though.
He knows the system. But I just think he's past his prime. I mean, why did it take him till week 3 to get signed, right? Last year, I looked this up too. I mean, Kareem Hunt last year, 41st in yards per carry. I think he's past his prime. He's 28 years old. I know people don't want to hear it because Kareem Hunt was such a staple in the fantasy community for all these years. But, I wouldn't even start Hunt this week. It's a wait and see for me. But I'm comfortable with Ford. Tom, I hope you get it with that 70%. I think he could perform as a mid-range RB2, man. You may want to bump it to 72. You can never do like an even, well, that's percentage-wise, but.
I actually thought about that because you're exactly right. Like people are going to be like, oh, I'm going to put an either like a number ending in 0 or ending in 5 on it. So if you just go one more, you might be good.
Yeah, but then they think about going one more, so you have to go 2 more. But
Got it.
You know what I'm saying? The mind games I play at like 1 a.m. in my bed trying to pick people up, and then I change it 6 times, and then the next morning I spent like 50 on someone, and the next highest is like 31. I'm like, damn it, you know what? Every single time it happens, but okay.
I spent in one of my dynasty leagues, Herbert and Tannehill were my only quarterbacks, and Tannehill is going to lose his job soon. So really, I was looking at like Herbert's my only quarterback. And after week 1, I spent like 20% of my fab on Zach Wilson just for depth, and nobody else bid on him.
Wow. It happens every time. Every time it's good for that. All right. Next up, man. So we wish the best, of course, to Nick Chubb and anybody that's injured. It's tough we try to be excited with our presentations because we love what we do, Tom, and this is so much fun. But when it's stuff like this, it sucks. And of course we wish him the best, but on to a new guy, Tom. So David Montgomery, thigh, he's day-to-day. Gibbs seems healthy, by the way. I don't know if you want to touch on both of those guys, but it looks like Monty's legitimately questionable for this week. What do you think?
Yes, it's being reported as a thigh bruise. Any of the thigh, typically if they report as a thigh, they're referring to the quad. Could certainly be a groin or probably not a hamstring because they would report it as that. So if it is a quad muscle, which it most likely is, that's it's super strong, powerful muscle that really powers us with running and especially with cutting. So for a running back, that's going to really impact their ability to do their thing. We see running backs average missing 1.9 games. That's what Montgomery's wording. It sounds like he'll fall into that range. He said he'll miss a couple weeks. And when he does return, we see a decline of about 16% fantasy points in the first game back. And it'll be interesting to see if this allows Jahmyr Gibbs to take the driver's seat in this backfield. Because it's been mostly Montgomery through these first couple games, which is kind of expected. He's a proven veteran back, and they're still integrating Gibbs into the offense. But if Gibbs goes for like 20 carries, 130 yards, 2 scores, you think they're going to give the keys back to Montgomery? I don't know, man.
I wouldn't. Heck no, man. I think it's Jimmy. I mean, it's chalky. It's cliche. It's common. But I think this is the week, man. I think this is the big week for Jahmyr Gibbs. He's so good. I mean, they do have the Reynolds family, not family, but they got Josh Reynolds, they got Craig Reynolds. They see a little bit of a bump. Maybe Josh Reynolds, he's been okay, probably worth the bench stash. But Tom, in reality, Gibbs, I think it's his time. Only 9 touches in week 1. We know that Campbell wanted to work him in. 14 touches last week, and showed off his receiving prowess a little bit. And they get like 6 or 7 catches. Don't panic if you drafted him. It's Gibbs time, man. He's a high-end play this week, I think, in fantasy and in DFS. And just a little side note from that team, Tom, again, with the call on some of these, I was going to say freshmen, some rookie tight ends. Sam Laporta looking the part here, man. Don't make sure he's not out there on waivers, guys, because we'll talk about Amon-Ra in a little bit. He's a little bit banged up. David Montgomery hurt. Sam Laporta, man, caught 5 of 6 targets for 63 last week, so looked pretty good. But again, with this backfield, you got Gibbs. Of course, you play him with confidence. I'm going to probably put in a couple of bets on him. We'll talk about that later, possibly. But he seems to be the guy. Next up, we go over to Jamaal Williams, hamstring, and reportedly, Tom, he's going to miss some time. How much time, and what are your thoughts on Jamaal Williams?
Well, we'll see how much time. It's sounding like a few weeks at least, though. And we know with these hamstring injuries, the recurrence rate way, way, way high. Not as bad in running backs as it is in receivers, like we've talked about on the show last time. The hamstring gets stressed at top-end sprint speed, which the running backs typically just don't have the space to get up to, which is why but the receivers do, which is why we see them more impacted. But Jamaal Williams definitely will be out this week, maybe a couple weeks. And that's interesting because his counterpart, Kendre Miller, who missed the first 2 weeks with a hamstring injury, full practice today. And this is a guy who was very productive in college, profiles as a running back that can be a legit playmaker in this league, and very well may see the bulk of the carries. I know Tony Jones Jr. is there as well, scored a couple times the other night, but we've seen him in the league for a few years. He's not special. He's a solid fill-in player for 8-10 touches a game, where Kendre Miller has the potential to be like a big-time playmaker. I don't love that Miller has dealt with multiple injuries in just this 3 weeks into his career. I mean, we know the MCL in college to end his college career. We know he had a groin injury earlier this season and then the hamstring injury. I don't love starting your career like that, but very young, so that's in his favor for healing, and very talented. I'm actually thinking about starting him in my league that I just lost.
That's crazy. What are your other options?
Can I finish, Joe?
You didn't let me finish. Actually, you did let me finish last week on Rashad White. Go ahead, Tom.
This is my league where I just lost Nick Chubb. So if 70% of Fab isn't enough to get Jerome Ford, I'm starting Kendre Miller.
I wish you luck. I mean, it could be an upside play. I do think, again, Tony Jones Jr. will play a role. Probably more design runs for Taysom Hill like last week. They're going to draw up some stuff for him. But again, you got Kamara coming back next week. So this is a good opportunity. It's not make or break for Kendre Miller, but I think it's a good opportunity. I wouldn't start Tony Jones probably, even though he did get the bulk of the work. But 12 carries, Tom. Like you said, measly 34 yards. Maybe Kendre Miller proves it this week, Tom. We shall see. I wish you luck.
I've also got Kyle Pitts on that team, so maybe I pick up Taysom Hill and start him at tight end.
Maybe you just pay the commissioner and retire for the season.
I'm the commissioner.
Okay, so just shut it down, Tom, and tank. Well, it's not one of those. It's not Dynasty, right, or whatever, where you get the picks.
Correct.
Okay, well, just tank anyway.
Yeah, this season's not off to a great start for me, but you know what? We're gonna turn it around.
I love that. Love the positivity, Tom. All right. Give us some positivity for Jaylen Waddle. Concussion protocol. I mean, I'm sure there's not too much involved here, just going through the protocol, but what do you got on Jaylen Waddle?
That's exactly it. And he did not practice today, so that's going to make it pretty challenging for him to get through the protocol by Sunday. We'll see how he does tomorrow, but at this point, I would not bank on him being available Sunday.
All right, Dolphins still might be the best, man. They're gonna be a legit. They already are. They are legitimate. They're a track team. They're fun to watch, explosive, dynamic. We'll see if Waddle's in. If not, it's definitely just a bump to Hill and some of those other playmakers there. On to Austin Ekeler, ankle injury, and I'm seeing no timetable. Tom, that's what Staley's saying. Is he was out today? I think. Tell us a little more about Ekeler. What's going on with him?
Yes. So they never specified the ankle injury, but if you watch the video, it's very, very much like a high ankle sprain. And that's where some of the lack of clarity will come in, because high ankle sprains are less predictable from a healing standpoint. Because with them, depending on how severe it is, you may get the separation of the tibia and the fibula bones from each other, which leads to some instability in the ankle. So now when you go to push off, imagine you're pushing off on grass or turf. You've got a nice stable surface to push off of. Well, imagine you're trying to cut on sand. It's just not as stable. So that's probably why there's some uncertainty, because they just aren't able to accurately predict how long it's going to take to heal because of the stability issue. Whenever he does return to playing, somehow our data shows no decline in fantasy production for running backs, but I think that's more coincidence rather than correlation. So I believe it would be more reasonable to expect a little bit of a dip in his production in his first game or two back. But a player like Ekeler, who can touch the ball so many ways, get in the end zone so much, whenever he does play, you're still going to start him. It's just going to be difficult to know exactly when he returns because of kind of the vagueness of his injury. But at this point, it does not look good for this week.
All right. Well said, as always. I mean, you got your Chargers, who we talked about them and how they're always on red zone in these close games. They just continue to find ways to lose, man. And Joshua Kelly was the guy who a lot of us thought would be okay in his in the absence of Ekeler. He was pretty disappointing last week. Only 39 rushing yards. It's another annoying backfield, Tom. It's crazy. When one guy goes down, it's not as simple as, put in the next guy. And I thought it would be like that with Joshua Kelly, but you had Elijah Dotson getting 4 carries, Spiller having a carry. I mean, this week's game should be fun, though. It's Chargers-Vikings Sunday game. There's going to be 100 points in that game. And just another question about this offense, because the backfield's certainly muddy with that Ekeler. What do you think about Quentin Johnston, Tom, quick? Because I drafted him in 2 or 3 leagues, and I liked him. I know it's a waiting game, and we got to be patient, but 2 games, 3 total catches for 16 yards. Is he even worth a roster spot anymore?
I think he's going to be later. We should not have expected him to do much early behind Mike Williams and Keenan Allen, who are proven veterans that Herbert has a tremendous rapport with. And even Palmer has been okay, and Herbert likes him as well. So I don't know that we were expecting a whole lot early in the season from him, but he's super talented. So I do think it's coming.
I wasn't expecting a lot, but I wasn't expecting 3 catches for 16 yards. I wanted a little bit more. I just needed a little push to keep him on my team because I want to release him, but it's all about patience, especially with these rookies, and could be a second half guy. How about Brandin Cooks? Knee, but it looks like he's expected to play. Tell us a little bit more about the Dallas Cowboys wide receiver.
Missed last week with the MCL that we knew all along was pretty minor, but just wasn't able to get it together for last week. With MCLs can swell quite a bit and lead to some stiffness. So if they're swelling and not full range of motion, it's going to make it very hard to play football. It looks like he's going to play this week, but we see a pretty significant decline in fantasy production and in snap rate for receivers when they return from a MCL. Over a 50% decline in fantasy production, 29% decline in snap rate in their first game back. I'm not starting him this week.
I don't think I even would have started him just by looking at his numbers if he was healthy, but that 50%, holy moly, that is a big decline. And I don't think I would start really any of their receiving options except, of course, CeeDee Lamb. He ate it up last week, Tom. CeeDee Lamb, 11 catches, 143 yards. Their next leading wide receiver was Jalen Tolbert with a whopping 17 yards. Like, it's not great there, but it's just that their defense is tremendous. We'll talk about Pollard a little bit later, but I was pretty excited about Cooks. But now what worries me just about him even going forward, let's talk about Cooks' future, even after we go past this 50% decline and hopefully he starts to get healthy. I just don't think that they're going to need as much offense. Like their defense it's disgusting. It's unreal. Like if they keep shutting teams down and grabbing a score, defensive special teams, like I don't even know if there's enough offense to go around outside of Pollard and outside of CeeDee Lamb. Like I was excited about Cooks, but looking at their defense, man, they are something special. And it doesn't bode well for the NFC East or for really anybody.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, if you're up by 30, you're not going to throw so much. You're just going to run out the clock. So, yeah, I wonder if the days of Brandin Cooks being a reliable, going to finish between wide receiver and 10 and 15 every single year or whatever, wherever he fell for all those years, those days are probably over. I think he's probably more of a nice to have on your NFL roster, but not super relevant for your fantasy roster.
Yeah, bring a little experience. And I thought I was getting him at a discount this year. He was going off the board, wide receiver, 40s or 50. I was like, you know what? If he finishes in 30 as a wide receiver 2 for Dallas, but I just don't know. We'll see. I just don't know if there's enough offense to go around because they don't need it right now. We'll see if that changes. Speaking of change, hopefully things change, Tom, for the Bengals and for Joe Burrow. It has been rough out there, man. I mean, T. Higgins totally shut down week 1. Did great last week. Jamar Chase hasn't done much, but let's talk about Joey B, Joe Cool here. Calf injury. Again, another guy that seems truly questionable. Talk to us about Joe Burrow.
This is a re-aggravation of his calf injury from camp. So right there, that's not good. We don't like to see the same injury getting injured again because now that whole healing process restarts. So he's definitely going to be at an elevated risk to injure it again if he plays this week. Probably some decline in the strength and force output of that muscle as well. And we need to remember the throwing mechanics. It's his right calf, right-handed quarterback. All the power for his throw starts from the ground and then goes up. So he's pushing violently off of that right foot, including that right calf, to create power for his throw. So I'm wondering if maybe this is why he's struggled this year. I mean, he's the quarterback 32 right now.
Only through 2 weeks, but no, especially after that contract, it's so unexpected. And we're overreacting through 2 weeks, but
yes,
they have been bad.
Abysmal.
0-2 to start for the first 2 years in a row. Like, what's 1 to 10, Tom? I'll give mine too. I haven't even thought about this answer, but what's your level of concern just with this team as a whole with the Bengals? 1 to 10, 10 being like I'm real worried.
It's not that high. It's like a 2 or a 3. I do believe that they will get it together. They're too good, and they've been playing together for too long for this to happen. I think Burrow will. I still think he will be okay, but I am starting to turn towards let's take him out of our fantasy lineups for a few weeks. Go pick up Jordan Love, who's been playing really well, or for this week, since Burrow actually plays Monday, you can pick up Baker, who plays the Eagles, who, yes, very good defense, but you can throw on them. And Baker's got Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. They're probably going to be playing from behind because the Eagles are a really good team. And that way you'll be able to pivot day of, since they both play Monday night, Burrow and Baker. We got 2 Monday night games again. So to me, that's the move. Or you could just go ahead and pick up Jordan Love and start him, but do not drop Joe Burrow because he will get it together. I'm wondering if some of his struggles have been because he's not over that calf injury yet, and I wonder if they shut him down for a few weeks, not IR or anything like that, but just let him really get right before they put him back in.
could definitely be that it's not 100%. I didn't even realize. I knew it was a calf injury. I didn't even realize it was the same exact one as the one in the preseason. So that's tough. That's something that we have to keep an eye on. I'm worried about them, but I think that they'll start to figure it out. They got to get a couple wins. They can't go to 0-3, 0-4 though, and then Joe Burrow comes back. It's got to be perfect, but we'll see how they do. Two more guys left to talk about here, Tom, or three more guys, I believe, to talk about. Anthony Richardson is our next guy up here. Concussion protocol. He's been awesome so far, but what do you have on Richardson?
So he's also got a concussion, and he did not practice today. Again, just like Waddle, it's going to be hard for him to get through the protocol to be ready by Sunday. And I think we got to start making other plans. Again, if he's the only quarterback on your roster, you're looking at guys like Jordan Love, Baker Mayfield. Probably wouldn't pick up Gardner and start him if he plays instead of Richardson. I just don't know that. I love Gardner, but I don't know that they've got enough weapons there for him to be relevant. So definitely be preparing to make alternative plans.
Well said. I mean, right now, man, he's quarterback 7 already as a rookie, which is awesome. And it's that rushing floor, man. That's what it's all about. It's what we haven't seen this year so far from Lamar Jackson and Justin Fields. That's what usually drives these guys. But Richardson's a rookie, and he's still diving all over the place. I think he ran in 2 last week. And if you draft a Richardson and you got another stud quarterback on your team, you could hold on to him, yeah, but you might be able to turn him or turn another quarterback into something good, into a wide receiver or a running back or something. Go trade for the guy or with the guy that has Joe Burrow, right? Like, think about it like that. Find a guy that needs a quarterback, and Richardson could be either your starter or a guy that you put on the trade block. 2 more, Tom. We have Brandin Aiyuk, he's also been excellent, but he is dealing with a shoulder injury. Another guy that looks the part, and I love Aiyuk. He's a student of the game. They always talk about how he always wants to improve. He's reading. He's putting in the extra work, and that Niners team overall looks hard to beat. But are they going to be with or without Aiyuk this week? What do you think, man?
Well, we'll figure that out later in the week. But the good news is he had a CT scan that ruled out a collarbone fracture. Now, they haven't said exactly what his shoulder injury is, but if they're looking at the clavicle or the collarbone, that's likely he's dealing with an AC joint injury, because that's kind of what it looked like, but also the AC, acromioclavicular, so the clavicle becomes part of the AC joint. Definitely going to be a little bit of an elevated re-injury risk if he gets hit the wrong way, lands the wrong way. And with AC joint injuries, we do see a dip of about 33% fantasy production in receivers in their first game back. I attribute that more to the decline of about 10 to 15% in their snap rate, because obviously if you're not on the field, you can't score points, but this is an upper body injury, so it's not going to affect his ability to run, jump, cut, get open, do athletic things. And they're not going to put him on the field if his arms can't move enough to catch the ball above his head. So I believe that decline in production is more due to decline in snaps, which makes sense. But still, he's been playing really, really well. I think if he plays, first of all, if you need to start him, you could consider that, even though understanding he's probably going to not play as much and maybe not get as many points. So we just kind of need to look at your roster construction. If you're a little weak at receiver, you could still go ahead and play him. If you've got suitable replacements, you may consider that.
Sounds good. Love Aiyuk. He is a phenomenal talent. Again, keeps getting better. And the Niners are going to be tough to beat. All right, Tom, one more guy. It is the sun god, Amon-Ra St. Brown, with a toe injury, and I think he's labeled day-to-day. Has he practiced? Haven't even seen that report, Tom. I'm on Rob. What do you got?
Minor toe injury. It's not expected to be much. With these toe injuries, they certainly can be debilitating, linger, re-aggravate, impact production. When we run, the toe needs to extend upwards to about 90 degrees. So if there's an injury there, that's going to be painful and limited, and the athlete's not going to want to push off that toe as hard, which is going to make them slower, make them more hesitant, make them less powerful. When it's a very minor injury, like it sounds like Amon-Ra's is, it's usually not going to affect them too much, because maybe there's a little bit of swelling that's causing some of the pain, but once you get warmed up, the blood flowing kind of pumps out some of that swelling, and they usually do just fine. It's more the grade 2, grade 3 toe injuries that can really impact production. Doesn't sound like that's the case with him. Plus, he's more of a possession receiver, so he's not burning you down the field like Tyreek Hill would be. He's getting open in the middle of the field, making the tough catches. And then, I mean, his run after the catch is tremendous, obviously. I don't think this is going to hurt him really at all. He's such a target monster. Goff loves him. If he's playing, which it sounds like he will, you're starting him.
Right. And even if it's 85% of himself or 90%, that's
still really freaking good.
It's still probably a wide receiver 1, and he is a target monster. He's on his way to another huge season. Good for him. All right, so that does it for not our major injuries, but the guys we're going to talk in detail about. Tom, there's a couple more guys if you wanted to talk about them, just guys that we're monitoring and guys that Tom always mentioned in his article. We're looking at Christian Watson. Isaiah Pacheco popped up today with a hamstring, and Aaron Jones and a couple other guys. Tom, what do you got on the rest of the players here?
Yeah, so anybody that we didn't touch on here is on my article on the fantasyinjuryteam.com. You can check them out there. You can also tweet at me at fantasyinjuryt with any questions. But just to hit on some of the guys you just talked about there, Aaron Jones still not practicing, so we'll keep an eye on him. I'll definitely be putting out updates throughout the week. If he does play, and he's dealing with a hamstring injury, if he does play, we actually don't see any decline in production for running backs when they return. He's a really, really good player, so if he suits up, you play him. Christian Watson, also hamstring, limited in practice. He's more of a speed receiver burner, so he is more likely to be impacted by this injury because we know the hamstring gets most stressed at those top-end speeds. And he's already injured this hamstring in his career, so elevated re-injury risk and about a 10% decline in fantasy production and 15% decline in snap rate is seen in receivers. But again, anybody that we missed, just check out the report on fantasyinjuryteam.com.
Tweet Tom your questions. Make fun of his, I don't know if you're watching on YouTube, make fun of his face, make fun, whatever you want to do out there. But yeah, Tom is a valuable resource for us. And Tom, as we transition, and thank you as always for that awesome information, as we transition to our next segment here, we're bringing in the big dogs. We're bringing in our boy. It is, Tom, I think I'm 2-0 so far, and you're 1-1 on our picks, and I think we've made some pretty decent picks, but we're digging deep in the bag here. We're bringing in the expert. It's our really good friend, Joe Dellera. You guys could follow him at Joe Dellera, Dellera on X. I usually just say Twitter, but we are X now. He is welcome, Joe. He's the host of the Cash That podcast and Player Props. He does that for the Action Network and another awesome podcast, guys. If you want picks, if you like money, which I'm going AC on Saturday, I could probably use some money. Joe, hook me up here. But wherever you find your podcast, Apple, Spotify. Joe, welcome. That was quite an introduction for you. Thanks for coming on, man.
Hey, thanks for having me, guys. Hope you guys are doing all right.
We're all good. We're hanging in there. My dog just started barking. She's excited that you're on the show, Joe.
Hey, let's go dogs,
That's right. So we're going to give a couple picks. Joe, we'll let you go first, and then me and Tom will give our picks. But just a reminder for you guys out there, we're teaming up with Sleeper. You guys can go to sleeper.com/promo/fit. They will give you a free, speaking of free money, they will give you a free $100 match. Sleeper.com/promo/fit. Joe, how many picks you got for us today? What are we doing?
We went a little crazy. We got 4. So we got 1 for the Thursday night game because, we got to get you guys some early action. And then we got 3 for Sunday. So I'll hit you guys with the first one. It is a weird prop. It is Jacob Moody over 2.5 extra points made for the 49ers. Oh my
goodness. He picks a kicker.
This guy.
Do kickers even get hurt? So.
Yeah, they don't come on our show very often, Tom. It's true. This guy, Joe, I'm going to let you have the stage here. Hey. Joe Dellera is money on this, but you're going to have to convince us to bet a kicker prop. What do you got?
So look, the way that I see this is the 49ers are obviously huge favorites on Thursday night. They're 10-point favorites over the New York Giants. The 49ers team total for the game is 27.5. So you're kind of, the line's kind of implying that the 49ers are going to score at least 3 touchdowns, the way that this is kind of looking and the way that his line is set up. Their team prop for touchdowns is over 3. It's over 3.5. So you're kind of getting a little bit of an edge here, I think, by just taking the kicker. There's a little bit of variance. Obviously, he could miss or they go for 2. But I think that given the fact that they should be winning, they should be leading this game, the Giants without Barkley. I think they're going to really kind of struggle to contain this 49ers offensive attack. The 2.5 extra points is a different way to kind of back the 49ers in a way and expect them to score while, not necessarily going to the 27.5 and expecting basically 4 touchdowns instead. So this is looking for 3, and I think this is a better way to attack the 49ers as a whole.
Joe, you must be a lawyer or something, because man, you could speak. That was lovely. All right, and he's my kicker in a couple of my leagues. The kicker in my Vampire League. He's been excellent as well.
2-0, 2 for 2 on this line so far this season too.
This is just one that we're peppering. All right.
Yeah.
So you've taken this kicker prop before already?
Yeah, the kicker props are kind of fun. They're like, it's a weird market. People literally don't think about betting on the kickers because they're just like, why do we even have kickers? But I think it's just a different way that you can back some of these guys, some of these teams in a little bit more nuanced way to, back their offense, because like the 49ers are going to be up probably kind of big. Why are they going to necessarily be going for 2 at any point? Or, and then at that point, it's like, do kickers really miss extra points anymore? It's still, like you're still looking at like 90%. So you're able to kind of get it at a better line, in my opinion.
Consider me convinced. So Thursday night action, I got some action for that game. I was going to say, give us some, I'm not going to say real bets because of course that kicker one is real, but how about maybe something we can relate to a little more? So
the rest of mine are all quarterbacks. The rest of them are all quarterbacks. Okay. So I'm looking at Tua Tagovailoa over 264.5 passing yards. Part of why I like this one is when we look at Denver so far is 30th in defensive DVOA in both overall defense and in pass defense. So outside of the concussion game that Tua had, he's 10 for 14 on the over of that with McDaniels at the offensive helm, and he's averaging 296.6. So I think that this is just like a little bit of a low line. All the trends too, like when you're looking at betting against the spread, they kind of back Denver. So Denver, they opened as a 7-point dog. They've been bet down to a 6-point dog at this point. So what the line is kind of suggesting is that it should be like either relatively close or maybe you go to backdoor cover, but there should be just enough there to keep Tua throwing throughout the game and, kind of trusting his arm against this relatively poor Denver defense, especially against the air. So I like Tua to go over the 264.5.
I like it. He's looked good. I mean, I've worried all year that he's going to go out with an injury. And side note about him, one of my coworkers is a Dolphins fan, and he said that Tua offseason took jiu-jitsu and all these other classes to learn how to fall properly because he had a heart. Like I learned that recently. I was like, wow, okay, maybe I shouldn't have faded him this year because he looks pretty good, man. But all right, Tua over 264.5, book it.
Yeah. And then we'll stay in that same game too. So one of the props that I like is Russell Wilson over 16.5 rushing yards. He's actually gone over this in 65% of games over the last 2 years. Last game he had 56. I think that Miami could cause enough like kind of troubles for him to start running the ball, if he's got a scramble or something like that. He's close to this line. So there's a lot of times where he's like the margins are thin, but he's averaging 19.6 over the past 2 years. And he's averaging 23.8 over his last 5 games. So I like him to go over the 16.5, kind of expecting him to try to create some offense. Denver's in an 0-2 hole. I think that he'll try to scramble, make sure that they don't go down on the season 0-3. So if you wanted to kind of play those in the same game, that's a way to do that too.
Wonder if you could, I don't know if they let you parlay the props that are in the same game. Probably not, right? 2-player props.
It looks like you can, because I put the 4 of these together and it was $100 to win 914. So
throwing a hundy on this.
Oh my!
Like if you do that, that's but it's paying 9.14 times. So
okay,
and then go ahead.
That's it. Now I'm starting to think about it. You're really talk dirty to me, Joe. Now 100 to win 9. And guys, listen, we're not telling you to do that with your free 100 from Sleeper, but
hey,
we will be celebrating next week of all 4 of these. Hey, give us that 4th one, Joe.
All right, and this last one is a little gross, but it's one that I love. And it's Jordan Love over a half an interception. So I want him to throw 1 interception. Part of why I like this is if we look at him so far, right? He hasn't really thrown any picks, but the Saints are 4th in DVOA and the 3rd in defensive pass DVOA. Love has thrown an interception in 12 of his last 17 starts, like as a person. So like dating back to college, etc. So 12 for 17 against the Saints, who kind of run like a lot of chaotic defensive schemes. They put a lot of pressure on the quarterback. They create like confusion. I think this is a much tougher matchup for Jordan Love so far throughout his career. You know, he played the Falcons. He played, who did they play in week 1? They played Chicago. So like neither of those teams have great defenses, right? So especially, well, let's not even get into Chicago's defense right now, but, but besides that, I think this is a much tougher matchup. It's a step up in class for him. And I think that there's a pretty good chance that he's going to throw over 1 interception here. And if you have alt lines available to you, you can get 2 at plus 425 as well. Like if you want to kind of sprinkle on those plus numbers there.
A little sprinkling. Tom was just talking about how he loves Jordan Love, but I think, you know, we had Tano Passano from the Saints actually on our show, and I followed the Saints defense closely, and they are good. They're sneakily good. They might be able to force that mistake. So, Tom, are you convinced? Are you you gonna put the mortgage on this? What are we doing with this?
I'm actually gonna go withdraw my 401k and put all that down. No,
only on the kicker prop, only on the Moody prop.
Kickers only. No, I will not do that. But actually, I really do like all those picks. And Joe, you really must be a lawyer because you sold them all very well.
Hey, we do what we can, man. So at least my jury's only 2 people right now.
That's very true. Well, you got 2 yes votes for us, Joe, and thank you so much for that. And me and Tom will try to top that. I don't know if it's going to happen, but I'm going to give my pick, and Tom, you give yours. But just to recap Joe's picks, we got Jake Moody. Just get it's over 2.5, right, Joe? That's the line. 2.5 extra points.
Yeah.
Tua over 264.5 pass yards. Russell Wilson over 16.5 rush yards, and Jordan Love to throw an interception with some possible sprinkles of a 2 interception game for 425. All right, Joe. So once again, that's Joe Dellera, guys, host of the Cash That podcast. Give him a follow. Go check them out wherever you guys do your podcasts. So far, Tom, I'm 2-0. Toot my own horn a little bit here. Week 1 gave you guys Keenan Allen. That hit. Last week, Tom, you doubted me. You gave me a stink face. You told me how bad my pick was. Rashad White over 56.5 yards.
He's still not good.
I know he's not good, but he had 73 yards. So 2-0. This week I give you, the line's a little bit high here, but jump all over this, guys. It's easy money. Tony Pollard, man. Tom, you know how much I adore him. I love him.
This is a Tony Pollard podcast.
It's the official Tony Pollard podcast. His rush line this week, guys, is 74.5. Listen, this year so far, he has been close to breaking one. We know how good he is, how explosive he is, his vision, his hands, all that stuff. First week, he was 14 for 70. And last week, 25 carries, only 72 yards. He hasn't been exactly efficient, but we know the type of player that Tony Pollard is, right? And last week, right, Tony Pollard, why did he get 25 carries? Well, because they played the Jets and they were winning, and that's what's going to happen this week too. The Cowboys might win by 20 this week. They're 11.5-point favorites against the Cards. We talked about how good the Cowboys defense is. They're for real. Cowboys are going to be up in this game. He doesn't even need 25 carries. Give him 20 carries, give him 21 carries, 22 carries, whatever. His career average, guys, 5.0 yards per carry, right? 20 yards or 20 carries times 5 yards a carry puts him around 100 yards, right? I think that's easy over 74.5. It's not as crazy and fun as a kicker prop, but Tony Pollard over 75.5 yards. Lock it in, baby. What do you got, Tom? No stink face from you. I think you like that one this week.
Oh, I'm totally fine with that one. My only concern would be if they get up big and he doesn't even play in the second half. But
yes, legitimate concern. They're up by 4 touchdowns in the fourth quarter and he's pulled. But I think he does the damage before that. But
he might be the reason they're up.
It could be.
So mine is a little less logical, more coin flip, but more just because Sleeper's offering a 4.24 times multiplier on this one. And it's for Kareem Hunt to just score a touchdown. That's all he's got to do. Doesn't have to do anything else. Just fall in the end zone. It can happen at any time. He can run it. He can catch it. He can play defense and get an interception. It doesn't matter. He just needs to score a touchdown. And it's a 4.24 times multiplier. I mean, if he was somebody that had never played for them, I mean, it still wouldn't be a bad bet because he's just got to get in the end zone. But he's played for them for 3 or 4 years. He knows the team. He knows the system, which tells me that, yes, and I just said a few minutes ago how I spent 70% of my fab on Jerome Ford. because I do think that Jerome Ford is going to be the lead back here. But all Kareem Hunt needs to do is get 10 touches, and one of them could find the end zone, and you're getting 4.24 times payout.
So that would be basically like plus 420, right? That's what that is. They do it a little bit different than some. Yeah, so 4 times payout. I mean, I'm having visions of Scott Hansen, and we go over to the and look who it is. Kareem Hunt just okay.
I'm glad you said it like that, because literally every week when I'm setting my lineup, I'm like, wait, if I don't start this guy, Scott Hansen's gonna do exactly what you just did. It's gonna be a cutaway to Scott Hansen saying, "Oh, look at Jordan Addison, rookie, catching a 60-yard touchdown." I'm like, "Oh, god damn it, I benched him this week."
And his like exciting, not high pitched voice, but that guy, Scott Hansen, that guy's got a job. He's electric. He really is.
Best.
All right. So those are our picks. And again, guys, go over to Sleeper, check it out. You guys can get that match by using the promo code FIT. And Joe, thank you again for your picks. And if you want to hang around, feel free. We got one more quick segment here.
No, thanks, guys. It was a pleasure being on here, and I appreciate the time.
Always, man. We'll see you soon.
Both your picks, by the way. Those are both fun.
Oh, thank you. Not as fun as your picks. Not as fun as
kickers.
Hey, nothing like a nice kicker. Later, guys.
See you later, Joe. Thank you so much. And Joe's the best. He's a really good friend of ours, and he works really hard. His content is awesome, and he gave us, Tom, something to do on this Thursday night game. And now I'm going to wake up tomorrow morning and start thinking about kickers. It's going to be great. All right, Tom. I didn't even tell you this. We did it. The Vampire League. We won? Win last week. We did it
only in week 2?
In week 2 with the starting lineup of Tua. Zach Moss gave me 18, Kyron Williams 25, Nico Collins 24. I just had to start Zay Jones 0, Tyler Higbee, Kendrick Bourne. The Bucs defense gave me 18, and Jake Moody gave me 14 points. So now me, the vampire who wasn't allowed to draft a team, I just had to pick up random people. I am 1-1. So remember, guys, when I get to win, it's gonna be me and it's just our team now, Tom, since we're on this pod together. We got to steal one player. So, Tom, tell me what you would do real quick. He had Saquon Barkley, who we know is banged up, Breece Hall, Calvin Ridley, Chris Olave. Who would you steal?
What's your current roster?
I have Zach Moss and Kyron Williams at running back. My wide receivers are Nico Collins and then trash Tyler Higbee at tight end to
Olave, no doubt.
Okay, that's what I did. I was considering Ridley, but I stole Chris Olave. And projection for this week, Tom, they come a long way from our week 180 projection. 108 for me. My opponent projected 114. So we will see. Maybe I'm 2-1 next week. We'll make a little run. But Tom, a little bit longer of a show today, but lots of injuries. We covered a lot of stuff, had a special guest. Thank you, Tom. You are the man. You're the best. Give him a follow at Fantasy Injury T. But Tom, thank you, man.
Thank you, Joe. Let's have a good week.
Let's do it, man. And always appreciate having you guys here. Remember, make sure to visit fantasyinjuryteam.com for some more awesome content. Have a phenomenal week. We are the Fantasy Injury Team, and we'll see you next time.